Hey everybody, what's up? We're back. It's those wrestling girls. It's your girl Krista B
and Queen P.R.
And today we have another dope summer series episode. Today we're spotlighting the one and only Ivory. Yeah. But before we get into it, P, you got a Raw is War shirt.
Oh yes.
Shout out to Riffle Junction.
Yes, classic design.
Yes.
And
I've wanted.
You know.
If you know, you know.
Yep. I wanted this shirt design for so long. And I would go on all these websites and be like, yo, I just want that classic Rose War. And then I went on Ripple Junction and literally found it.
Right there.
Yes.
Boom.
Yes.
So if you guys want your Ripple Junction shirts, remember to use the code Those Wrestling Girls. Get your 15% off. Tell them that we sent you. And remember to tag us and them in your shirts that you purchase, because we still have a contest going on. We got some cool merch. Shout out to Royal Rose Creations.
Yeah,
she just made us some dope merch, and definitely she will be making us some more. Black-owned businesses, support it. Hit her up on IG. She makes any and everything. Just ask her. Tell her that Krista B from Those Wrestling Girls sent you.
Yes.
And now we're going to get into our spotlight with the lovely Miss Ivory. P, take it away.
Yeah, so as you guys already know, we're in the middle of our Attitude Era Summer Series, and we were actually going to close out the last two of the series with Trish and Lita.
Right.
And no shade to those Hall of Famers. We absolutely love them. We respect everything they've done. But what hasn't already been said about Trish and Lita? You know, it's like, okay, we've been there, done that. Not saying we're not going to cover them. We'll cover them in a fun way. But I wanted to do someone different that doesn't get talked about as much, and that's Ivory.
Right. And was she in our Forgotten Women?
No, we didn't
mention her.
No. Another episode y'all should check out.
Just dropped, the Forgotten Women of the Attitude Era. But yeah, Ivory was definitely a staple in Attitude Era. She was a staple in wrestling.
She really was.
So a little backstory on Ivory before we get to this lovely sheet that P created. Ivory was actually a part of Glow, the original Glow that came on in the 80s. I believe she was a good girl. She was part of the good girls. Her name was
Tina.
Yeah.
Princess Tina, I think.
Princess Tina. Basically, she was like a rich girl or whatever. And I never knew that Ivory was a part of Glow.
I did not either until like the show on Netflix.
I watched the documentary, and then the documentary was on Netflix, and then I saw the show, and I was like, oh my gosh, why is Ivory here? Oh, wow. And then it's like, she was like the only one who kind of went on to continue wrestling.
Yeah.
I had everybody.
And like the best company you could possibly wrestle in too.
Right. So Ivory is literally a staple of wrestling and women's wrestling.
She really
I'm just kind of upset, but not so upset that it was during a time where we were also fixated on the men. But she got her flowers. She's a Hall of Famer.
She did.
She's a Hall of Famer.
She was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2018, which was right there. And another person we covered, Molly Holly, actually inducted her into the Hall of Fame. And for some reason, Molly Holly's not in the Hall of Fame, which is very interesting too. But so Ivory debuted in 1999. Now, I was looking back on my Ivory stuff, and I did not remember that she debuted as the manager of D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry.
Me neither. And you know I'm a history buff, so I didn't remember that. I'm like, wait a minute, she did what?
Yeah, she was their manager, and I think that was back where that was like the formula where it was like, okay, we have a hot tag team and women, so let's just make the woman the manager type of thing.
Right.
But she ended up doing bigger things because she was actually a wrestler, like you said. She was a part of Glow. And did you like the Netflix show Glow?
I did. I have to finish watching season 2.
Oh yeah.
But first season, I loved it. And then cute. Being that I watched the documentary first, because I'm a huge documentary buff too. Like watching the documentary first and seeing what those women actually went through. Like they were on some wooden stuff, and wooden boards in the ring. Like one part of the show, of the documentary, they talked about their injuries that they acquired, and one girl, she did I think it was like an arm drag, and her arm landed wrong, and she ended up like this.
Oh my god!
And it was like really broken, and she had to continue. I guess she continued or she stopped. But you can see like her getting out there in her arm, like she's holding her arm, and she showed like the scar and stuff. It's crazy. Like these women,
I have to watch that because I'm sure people look at Glow like, oh, that was cute, like the women did this, but like they were taking bumps just like the men. They had that hard ass. Honestly, they probably weren't taking care of as much as the men were because people didn't take them seriously like as wrestlers. So, and then Ivory came from that. So that means that they already knew that she had charisma. She was good on TV.
And she had the ability to wrestle.
Yes. So, like, I think Ivory was definitely a great addition to the Attitude Era roster. But when I think of Ivory, when I think of the Attitude Era, I think about Right to Censor. Like that's what I think about. I think about her in those button-up shirts with the tie and that whole group.
The pants, the hair pulled back in a ponytail into a braid.
Yeah.
Them coming out with their hands up, like trying to censor everybody. And I'm just like, bruh. Boo. But when I think of Ivory, I think of her coming out in her purple with the scarf. Like she always had that scarf. You knew Ivory was coming out when she had that scarf.
You're right.
That's when I think of Ivory. And then she kind of reprised that role in that outfit when she came to Evolution.
Yep. That was great, actually.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like Ivory is at Evolution. Like she didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a step.
Not at all.
She got she was like in a dance competition or whatever with Carmella at one point, which we witnessed. Yeah, like it was so dope. And I'm just like, oh man, to like go back and relive that day, you know. I would love to do it again. We need an Evolution too, y'all.
We really do.
Like stop playing with us.
And I feel like they keep teasing it, like they're gonna announce it, and they never do. But what I liked about Ivory at Evolution was she looked like she was having so much fun. Right. And like wrestling is wrestling, and it's fun for the fans. But a lot of the times, the performers take it like really seriously. But Ivory was just enjoying herself. Like she loved being a part of this event. She loved being a part of the girls. Like all her interviews backstage, she was just like smiling. Like, you know, she's just like, I'm just happy to be here. I'm just trying to keep up with everyone else. And I think it was a good addition to have her. I feel so too.
And because you would have never thought that they would have called her, because already the first Royal Rumble, Women's Royal Rumble already passed, and she wasn't in it. Yeah. So a lot of people we saw in the first Women's Royal Rumble, we saw at Evolution. Yep. So when Ivory's music hit, I don't know if I dropped popcorn. I don't know what I did, but I know I was just like, oh my gosh, like it's Ivory. And we were like, we had pretty good seats, we had a really good view of everything. Yeah, and it was just so dope to see Ivory, Molly Holly, Michelle McCool, what other legends was in there? Alundra Blaze, like all those legends in there, and it was just like really dope to witness that, because I've never been to an Attitude Era show.
Me neither.
And that's just something that I know I always wanted to go when I was young. I always asked my aunt, oh my gosh, can you please take me for my birthday? Like, something always happened on my birthday. And I'm like, can we go? Or she's like, what do you want to do for your birthday? Go to the WWE shop. Like, go there. I never went, but I kind of regret it now. So being able to see, like, those classics and, you know, in the ring, those legends, like, just going at it. And you know who Michelle McCool didn't miss a step either.
Oh, no. She definitely hasn't.
Between Royal Rumble and Evolution, like,
she's bringing it. Like, when's your comeback? Like, it's like, have you been training for your comeback? Because like, you're definitely bringing it. But that was fun about Evolution too, because when did we ever think we'd see Ivory in the ring? Right. Like, we would be like you said, like Attitude Era passed, and now it's like, oh wait, we got a chance to actually see Ivory.
And it makes you forget, like, you have more of these legends come up. Ivory, Jacqueline, Molly Holly, Tori Wilson, Kelly, like, they all came up, and I'm just like, oh wow. But Ivory was really, like, Ivory wasn't even a thought in my mind. No shade, no tea, but it's just like, you know, out of sight, out of mind. And I see her, like, even watching her, I just be like, I wonder what happened to Ivory. But I'm pretty sure she's good, because you didn't hear about her in the news or whatever. Right. And then she came up and became inducted. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. You know?
Long overdue, too. So back to, I guess we'll save Right to Censor for last, because I feel like that's like her.
That was like her ending. Towards her ending, yeah.
Yeah, but she feuded with a lot of notable women at the time. Like we talked about Terry Runnels last week, and we said like how she was in the company for like 8 or 9 years, which was a long time for women in the Attitude Era. But Ivory, in her short amount of time, she was able to face Trish, Jackie, Deborah, Chyna, Sable, Luna, Molly Holly. She had a feud with Fabulous Moolah, and Lita, a lot of people say, is one of her most notable feuds. But I did know, so what's interesting about the Attitude Era, we talked about it too, was like a lot of women that were champions during that time were not wrestlers.
Right, at all.
Ivory was.
Ivory was a wrestler. Jacqueline was a wrestler. And Chyna was a wrestler. Yep. And, I mean, we know Trish and Lita were wrestlers. Moolah was definitely a wrestler. Not saying I don't think she was champion, but I knew she was a wrestler. But epitome... Ivory's literally on top. Even like I have to say, she's kind of above Chyna in a sense, because not saying that Chyna don't get her flowers, and don't come for me on Twitter because I'm saying this, but Ivory is like that legend because she started in the industry way longer than any of these other females. Not taking anything away from everybody else, but we giving Ivory her flowers today.
We definitely are. And I think it's cool, too, because just even talking about Glow, like, Glow was revolutionary within itself because it gave a whole show to women wrestlers. Like, that was a time in the 80s where, like, you had Hulk Hogan, where he was, like, the top of the world. So they're like, okay, like, we need to replicate that for women as well. So the fact that that show existed, I think, was cool. And the fact that Ivory was a part of it was even cooler. And then for her to then go on to, like, join the WWE and actually wrestle and be champion 3 times, like, that's a pretty good wrestling career, like, for someone that was wrestling during the time that she wrestled in.
Right. But yeah, because Attitude Era, like we said plenty of times, besides, it's fucking us up. I'm just going to get that on the shirt.
It's happening. It's definitely happening.
Getting on the shirt. The Attitude Era was really mostly geared towards the men. And the women would just put in these little side pocket matches where it's just like, okay, well, you can sit here, just entertain for a little bit before we have Rock Austin, Triple H Austin, Undertaker Kane, DX, and the group is
Hardy Boys?
No. DX and the ones who
did the Nation of Domination.
Yes, them. Lord, I'm sorry, it was blowing my mind. Like any male feud. Oh, and we also have to. Right. You also have to fill in right before Chyna comes up because she's gonna come up with the guys and she's gonna fuck shit up. So it was good to see Ivory kind of stand out and mold herself into like being molded into her own space to where people loved it when she came out. She really was just like. She was fun in the ring, but she also was no nonsense in the ring either.
Yep. And she has victories over Lita, Chyna. Like she, when she was in Right to Censor, they were on a winning streak that Ivory was a part of. And I was looking back, and it's funny that you said like how in the Attitude Era, it was always focused on the men. So I was going last night. So we changed this episode at the last second.
She was like, what about this one? I'm like, yeah, we could do it. We could do it.
Last night, I'm like, okay, let me just like look up some stuff about Ivory and, refresh my memory. And during the women's matches in Attitude Era, even on commentary, it was mostly about what was coming. Whatever Triple H was doing, whatever Stone Cold, The Rock was doing. Like I watched a match. It was a handicap match. Chyna against Ivory and I'm blanking on the second woman that was in the match, but it was a handicap match. Chyna was facing 2 women. And
was it Lita?
Yes, it was. Yep, it totally was.
I remember that match. Yeah, this is when she was in Right to Censor, I believe. Yep.
And the whole time, they're mainly talking about The Rock and Stone Cold. Now, when we were younger, that was normal because me as a kid, I needed to know what Stone Cold was up to.
And I needed to know what The Rock was doing. Like, where are you?
Even if he's not on TV.
Why is he not here?
What is Stone Cold doing?
How long is he going to take to arrive at the building? Who's going to meet him at the door? What feud is coming up next? Like, that's how real it was. If you was a Rock Austin fan.
Oh, yeah. Yep,
like, if we were younger, those wrestling girls would never, we would have thought about this.
We would have been
enemies.
Do you smell what The Rock is cooking versus like Austin 316 type of podcast type of vibe?
If that, or we probably would have never been seen.
Exactly.
Period.
I just admitted I'm a Rock fan like 4 years ago.
Yeah,
like,
it was that
I'm a
Stone Cold fan too. Like, looking back, I'm like, Stone Cold was ruthless. Like,
yeah, I'll be like, I don't think The Rock is funny, even though I'm like, damn, he's so fucking funny.
Hilarious.
But we weren't supposed to like care about and that's why we were so excited about the women's evolution, because WWE never trained us to think about the women in the same level as the men. Period.
Like, and now they mad. And now these men are mad.
That was the WWE's biggest mistake, was putting the women on the same level as fucking the men, because men can't handle that shit.
Men can't handle it. Stay tuned for a Krista B sound off on that.
Yes.
By the time this episode comes out, that sound off will be out too, so stay tuned.
Yes, definitely stay tuned. But I was excited rewatching Ivory matches, because another misconception about the Attitude Era, now that we're like 20 years later, is that there wasn't women's wrestling. Like, people, like, yes, there were a lot of stripping matches, but Ivory was wrestling. She was coming off the top rope. She was doing missile drop kicks. Like, Ivory was a wrestler.
It was really rare when you saw Ivory like in an evening gown match or bra and panty match or something like that. And I feel like her joining the Right to Censor was her stand, and it probably portrayed as somewhat true, like how she was frustrated with the creative of why women are being so exploited. Is always bra and panties, evening gown matches, mud matches, whatever match you can possibly think of with exploited women. Even when Eric Bischoff came and he had the HLA, the hot lesbian action stuff, it's just like, really, what?
Seriously.
Like, even then I cringe. So even like watching it now, I'm just like, oh.
It's interesting how us as young girls, like, we didn't know why we were uncomfortable about certain things we were watching, but we knew, like, this is not cool.
This is not
like, this is not cool, but okay.
Not saying that, you know, we're going to clear this up right now.
Yeah.
Not saying that being in a homosexual relationship is not cool.
No.
Not saying that. The way that they were exploiting these women in those fashions was not cool. The hot lesbian action and the way that it was exploited was not cool. Like, it just really showed a real pervy side of these men. And even like when you watch it on TV, you see a pervy side of your brother, your father, your uncle, because you'd be like, that's what you think about?
Yep.
This is this really how what's going down? Like, going on in your mind? Like, go take up a book. Go pick up a book. Go do something.
That is exactly what people were thinking, unfortunately. And the thing about the women at this time is that I don't even know like how to say it. Like, it's almost like men want them to stay like where they were during this time. Like, it's like
they don't want them to evolve.
They don't want them to evolve. They like that.
They want them to be on each other. They want them to be inferior. Inferior. They want them to be inferior.
Yep.
Newsflash. It's not going to happen.
No.
Sorry.
No. Especially with this podcast existing.
Add us if you want to. Yeah. We got time. We got nothing but time.
Okay, so then let's talk about Right to Censor. Because that was Attitude Era staple. Everything about the Attitude Era is right to censor, because it challenged what the Attitude Era was bringing, which is what we talked about, the raunchiness, the cursing, the sexual innuendos, and the, you know, and we talk about it and we joke about it, but like, if you really go back and watch some of these episodes, like some stuff you would really be like, I cannot believe they just said that. Like, I cannot believe they just did that. Like, I was watching this one, and I don't know if this is more Ruthless Aggression era, but like Paul Heyman was like stalking Lita at one point and like stole her luggage and like had her panties at the top of the ramp.
Definitely,
it was like
Ruthless Aggression.
And I'm just like, how did somebody be like, okay, I got a great idea for SmackDown tonight. So we're gonna have Paul Heyman grab her panties, and he's gonna act like he's doing. And I'm just like,
that's gross.
Ew, you know, like
God forbid they were really her underwear. Let's just talk about that. If they were really her underwear and he really went through her luggage, sis, I hope you burned your clothes after all. Throw the whole luggage away. Don't keep nothing in there, because that's gross.
It really is.
That is so gross. Like, Attitude Era fucked us up.
Really, really.
And the reason why even though that was Ruthless Aggression, a lot of that started in Attitude Era.
It was just the continuation of everything that was going on in Attitude Era.
Like, I just want to ask some of these wrestlers looking back at it now, like, do you feel dumb? Like, how do you feel? Like, I really want to ask Triple H, how did he feel doing the whole necrophilia segment with Katie Vick and, you know, Kane? Like, how did you feel doing that?
Like, where somebody's like, okay, Triple H, here's your script. So you're gonna jump on the casket, and then you're gonna
not on it, in it,
in the casket,
in it,
and you're gonna be,
how does that work with a dead body? Even though we know now it was never a dead body, right. But having sex with a dead body, pretending to be somebody else. Bad enough you're already your own character. You're not Paul Levesque.
I don't mean to laugh.
You're not. So you're Hunter Hearst Helmsley or Triple H. So on top of Triple H, you also have to impersonate Kane.
Yep.
How did you go so deep within your mind? Did you study these like these serial killers who were necrophiliacs? Who literally did you watch?
I know how they act.
Crime shows. Like, please, I really want to know why. And I want to ask Vince, why did you think that was okay?
And the weird thing is, a lot of these ideas do come from Vince, which is like really.
When we talk about which Vince, we talking about Vince Russo or Vince McMahon?
Both
Vinces.
Both.
And if you guys, y'all know about Vince Russo, and if y'all don't know about Vince Russo, please Google him.
And his storylines.
Right.
But it's funny because, the Right to Censor was a parody on the Parents Television Council. So as you can imagine, if you've been listening to our Attitude Era series, parents had an issue with the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, they had an issue with everything.
They were like, this is too much, this is inappropriate. So they actually changed Raw's rating to TV 14. So they were like, okay, well. And I remember this vividly only because I was like, because my parents were big on like ratings. I couldn't watch rated R movies as a kid. They were like, oh, it's not for you. And I was like, does this mean, as my little 9-year-old self, like, does this mean I can't watch Raw anymore? But they was like, yeah, I can still watch it.
I watched rated R movies. I was just chaperoned. I was just chaperoned. They really didn't care. My household didn't care about ratings. If you quiet, watch the TV, go ahead, do it. Like, we knew not to watch, like, full nudity. Right. We knew not to watch porn. We knew not to watch
things. You knew when to be like...
Or go get out the room. We knew not to watch things like that. But to look at a TV series and be like, that's TV and May 14, and you're 9, so yeah, go to bed.
Yeah, okay. You were like, no, fuck that.
That was not in my household. We knew what to watch. We knew what we shouldn't watch. And my aunt, God rest her soul, she was like always approving of my brother's stuff. So my brother would watch it with us. All right,
and you was right there, like,
go watch.
I'm like, watch.
He said it's okay. All right, go ahead, bye. Like, if it was just me and my sister, maybe I'll have to cry.
Yeah,
that's that youngest child syndrome. Okay, I still have that to this day.
Me too.
Like, that's the youngest child syndrome. If you don't know, then you don't know. Can't help you. But yeah, so those ratings and stuff, like when it started to come out, I remember it being changed to the TV and May 14. I'm just like, wow. So they let 14-year-olds and stuff watch this, but we can't watch it no more. And what if, like you said, we had to be up on what everybody was doing? And I'm just like, all right, well, I'm gonna watch it anyway. But that was never really in my household.
But the Parents Television Council will always have like all these complaints about WWE, so they decided to make it into a thing on TV, which I think is genius.
Right.
So Stevie Richards kind of started it. So he would come out and, let's say they had a woman stripped at least once every show, and Stevie Richards would come out and just out of nowhere cover them up. Like, no, you can't show.
Start running out the crowd with the trench coat or the towel.
Yeah. And I remember, because of course, like, who doesn't want to see women strip? So everybody kind of hated him. So then they started this group, Right to Censor, and it ended up being him, Ivory, Bull Buchanan, Val Venus at first. And I just remember their music. It was like, like, oh,
super fucking annoying.
Like, okay, yeah, we're supposed to hate y'all.
Yeah. Yep. And it was so funny to me to see Val Venus and The Godfather.
Because he was the porn star.
The epitome of porn and sex were The Godfather and Val Venus.
Right.
And it didn't hit me till late, like until I started rewatching Val Venus and how he spelled Venus.
How does
V-E-N. Exactly.
I can't believe that. I never made that connection.
I'm just like, hold up, did he just really change
not
the P
subtle.
for a V?
Yes, he did.
Like,
I never made that connection.
Yo, like, I was just like, how did I not make this before? Like, how did I not? How did I not see this before? Like, okay.
That's actually so funny.
For them to be a part of it, it was just like, oh my God, no more hoes.
Yep. And remember, he was the good father.
The good father. Not the God, the good father.
I miss the hoes. I'm not gonna lie. I like the hoes. As a kid, I didn't know what a hoe was, but I was like, those girls look like they having a lot of fun.
Right, the parties and stuff or whatever, and how he would like give them to different people.
Like, I want to party with him too.
Like,
let me be quiet.
And Val Venus with the hello ladies and the whole and all that and
towel and everything.
Abs. I think he's what drew me to abs. Like Val Venus drew me to. I was like, oof.
It's so funny because
my little hot box of a 8, 9, 10-year-old mind.
And it's funny because of the age we was watching the Attitude Era, because when we were working on our last episode, we were talking about Deborah, and I remember Deborah's boobs so
just out there
vividly, like
literally
vividly. Like that was probably like an awakening for me, because I was just like,
if you was to draw her, it'll be boobs first, like this, and then it will be slim down here, mini skirt and long ass legs. Yes, and then everything else comes after.
Yes. But it's weird because, like, I think because we've been doing the series, and I'm thinking, like, why did Deborah make such an impression on me? Like, I remember Deborah more vividly than a lot of the other women, like, but she didn't do a lot relatively to, like, other people, but, like, I remember her business suits vividly. I remember her boobs vividly. I remember the nice little, like, lace white bra she wore under her blazers. I'm like, maybe I just liked her sense of style too.
Right, yeah, like, okay. I mean, she came out, even though she came out to wow the crowd with her assets, she was very presentable with it. Like, she wasn't tacky, she wasn't slutty, and I think that's another reason, like, we remember her so vividly, because she was classy with it. She wasn't one of them trashy people to come out dressed slutty, and it was like real class like.
You're right.
So I'm just all right, they trying.
they trying. How did you feel about Ivory in Right to Censor? Like, I was reading up on her, and a lot of people praised her because they said that she just played that prude role so well, like her voice, the ponytail.
She did. At first, like, looking back on it, like, during Ivory's run in WWE, it'll be times where she'll come out and you'll feel like you're hearing close to crickets, like when nobody really applaud, or they'll boo, or they'll just like, you're like in an auditorium and everybody's just talking amongst themselves. That's how I felt like sometimes. So when she came to Right to Censor, I just felt like, one, they're just trying to place her somewhere. Because she's been gone. Like, before she joined Right to Censor, she was out for a little minute. So one, they're just trying to place her somewhere. Two, we'll see where this goes. So when she became, like, the heel Right to Censor member, the main woman face, the ones trying to change stuff, right? People started to gravitate towards it, because it's just like, yo, she kind of has a point. Like, and then she was still showing off her wrestling skills.
Yep. And they were on a winning streak during that time too.
Right. So I appreciated for her, like I said earlier, it's probably a part of her that was really frustrated. She wanted to stand in her own and stand in her ground and be like, listen, I'm tired of these matches where you're literally degrading us women every night, going out there doing meaningless matches just to be a bathroom break, just to be looked at as, okay, we're nothing more than our assets instead of our actual abilities. So, I'm going to do Right to Censor, and I'm going to show you that I can still wrestle and be fully clothed.
Yep.
And I feel like that's where Molly Holly kind of, like, stepped behind her when she started wearing the black pants and the shirt, and she didn't want to participate in other stuff like that.
She was like, I want to have a wrestling match.
Right. Right. So, I was here for it, because she kind of paved the way for, Molly Holly to come behind her, and she paved the way for Trish. Like, Trish's outfits kind of changed too.
She got more.
She wore more
like
pants.
A wrestler, like, I'm a wrestler now, not just like eye candy.
But then it kind of, dwindled down with the Divas era and things of that nature. But the Divas also started to fight more too. So I feel like Ivory played an integral part in where we are now.
I agree.
The women's division.
And I think she brought, like, a lot of different things to the table. And I like that you always bring up, like, just, like, how far the women have come, because people talk about the evolution, the revolution, like, or whatever, but, like, things wouldn't be where they are now if it wasn't for the Ivorys and the Molly Hollies and even the Jacquelines that were unfortunately doing a lot of bra and panty matches. But like that's the journey, like that's the evolution of like how things go.
Right.
But Ivory, she had a lot of memorable feuds, like we said before. China, she has said, was one of her favorite feuds to have.
Even though China really wasn't taking her serious.
She like threw her.
Right. She's like, I can rag you. And that's what she did. She kind of threw her like a rag doll.
Like, totally. Like, yeah. And it's funny because her being Ivory at WrestleMania 17 was like one of the official ends of Right to Censor. And then she feuded with Moolah, which I remember vividly.
I don't think I remember that.
They had like a lot of like arm wrestling matches and those weird specialty matches.
I really don't remember
that. Jacqueline, of course.
Not her old ass.
And she feuded with Jazz later on. That's probably one of her last feuds before she ended up leaving. But a lot of people look at her feud with Lita as one of the better ones. Like I read a few articles about her match with Lita at Survivor Series, I want to say 2001, and a lot of people were like, how people talk about women's wrestling matches now, like they were saying that about that match, like women can actually bring it, can actually this. And I was excited to read that because you only hear about Trish and Lita, like, oh, they did all this at the time for women and they were the main event and they did all these things. But the women during the Attitude Era were having good matches with each other, and it wasn't just Trish and Lita. Like Lita and Ivory had good matches at a Big Four pay-per-view. So I just wanted to make sure that we that we mentioned that. And also she had a pretty good title match against Tori at SummerSlam that year, where that people like were talking about. So I think it was what you said earlier, like Ivory came out way ahead of her time.
Yeah. I feel like it was needed, because I feel like if we had all those women come out now, it would be so, I don't want to say overbearing, but it would be overwhelming to like kind of watch everybody. But given, Rona's over here fucking us up, I'd rather see more. Like,
it's funny how we're getting old, Krista, because we're talking about stuff that was like 20 plus years ago, and we're like, I remember that like it was yesterday.
Signs of the times, y'all. Signs of the
times. I do want to also mention Ivory. You mentioned her purple look, but Ivory also experimented a lot with her gear, and it was fun to see like what she was gonna wear next. With White to Censor, we knew it was like white button up,
black pants,
or whatever. But she experimented a lot with her look, which I appreciated.
I think it was blue, it was purple, it was red. I think it was like. Yeah, she did. But she always had a scarf. She always had a scarf.
Yep.
That was
she
it.
She really did. And then after the Attitude Era, she was not featured as prominently as she was before. And I was reading up on things, and a lot of that is because you gotta you're just as good as your opponent. So it's kind of like the Alinda Blaze syndrome, where it's like, okay, she's great, but like, who is she gonna face? Like, she can't just be the only. Yeah, like she can't just be the only one. And it was the same kind of thing for Ivory. But she was in the company for a relatively long time too. And during the alliance angle with WCW and ECW, I probably asked you this, but how did you feel about that growing up? Like, were you feeling the invasion?
I was like, oh, Vince got screwed. Shane, how could you? Stephanie, you're a bitch. Like,
she just gonna buy ECW?
She just gonna buy ECW. Walk past her dad like that. What's wrong with you? Shit, you can tell you didn't get beat.
That's what was missing.
That ass whooping. Shit. No, looking back at it now, it was dope because it felt like they kind of screwed us as fans. Because, of course, things are scripted, they're all in it together. Yep. So they kind of screwed us because at the end of the day, they all started working for Vince.
Right.
Stephanie and Shane are still stockholders in the fucking company.
Exactly.
Like,
and half of the people that were in the WCW Alliance or the ECW Alliance were like WWE wrestlers. So it was just like, oh, okay. Like Ivory ended up joining the WCW team with Tori Wilson and Stacey Kleber, but what? Yeah. Like, you've been a WWE girl this whole time.
But I guess she really didn't have nobody in WWE too. Like,
that's true. And they just had to split everybody up. And I think this is where it goes to show kind of how Ivory was like more ahead of where the women's division was, because I think about Tori Wilson and Stacey Keebler, and no shade to them. And then you look at Ivory, it's like, I look at Ivory, it's not the same. Yeah, it's not the same. I feel like Ivory could be utilized way more than eye candy, and Tori and Stacey are very good eye candy. And I don't take away, like, I don't want to demean women who are eye candy, because that's a thing too. Air quotes, sis. You're right. That's the thing too. Like, you have to maintain your figure. You have to be the center of attention. Like, it's not easy to play the role of a Stacey Keebler or a Tori Wilson. So I hate that they get like, they don't get a lot of credit because they weren't wrestlers. But do you know what it takes to come out and be a Sable and be the sex symbol? Like, that's also have to not put easy.
A lot of confidence in yourself. Right. Even if you don't have the highest amount of confidence, right. You have to fake it.
Yeah. You have to keep yourself in shape. You have to be able to be that person, and that's not easy. And and that's why I had no issues when Tori Wilson was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Was that last year? Last year, because I was just like, you know what? She had a place in WCW and what she was doing.
That was last year we went?
Yeah.
2019?
Crazy.
Really?
Yeah. And then this year's WrestleMania was 2 days at the Performance Center.
Lord. I thought this one was 2018.
Yeah, crazy. Well, crazy.
Yeah.
But then Ivory, she didn't stay in the company for much longer, but she left Tori and Stacey, and she had this like on-screen romance with Tajiri. And I'm like, who didn't have a romance angle with Tajiri?
Really?
Yeah. It went over my head at the time, and I was reading up on it, and I was like, oh yeah, that did happen for like a hot second.
Well, please enlighten me, because I don't remember that.
It was like a hot second. She ended up leaving Stacey and Tori because she was like, I love him and I gotta be with him.
Or so she was like smitten.
Yeah. And then, but that didn't really like last long. And then she teamed up with Victoria for a little while.
That I remember.
And they were like a tag team for a short time. And then she feuded with Jazz, which I think was probably on her level. Like, oh shit, like I could wrestle this girl. Like I have good matches. But I don't think WWE was ready for that. And that's no shade to them. I just don't think that's where they saw women's wrestling going. And then she became a trainer on Tough Enough.
She did.
Did you watch Tough Enough?
I did not.
I didn't either, and I wish I didn't. Now that I like, because there's so many like iconic lines and stuff that happen from Tough Enough.
Stone Cold and Adrian. Who's your favorite? What was your favorite match? And she said, and he was like, "What?"
He was like,
"Who? What?"
All right, I'm done with you.
Right, like, dismissed. So you Stone Cold, you wasn't watching wrestling then.
I think it was good to have her as a trainer though, because she was fun. She had a lot of like the all-rounded, like she had charisma, she could wrestle, but she knew how to play the crowd, she knew how to play a character because of Glow. It's like Ivory really had the full package in my opinion.
She did. And then she got inducted in 2018 by Molly Holly, who also needs to be inducted like fuck
yesterday.
But yeah, she got inducted. Her career, her story is amazing. I'm so glad that she's still doing well. We had a chance of seeing her evolution, like I mentioned earlier. And I just feel like this episode was definitely needed because people don't hear much about Ivory.
You really don't.
I know she's a dog mom. Yeah. I don't know if she has actual kids, but I know she's a dog mom. And yeah, she's doing fairly well for herself. So y'all guys follow Ivory on Instagram.
And I was listening to JR's podcast and a lot of old wrestlers podcasts that work with her, and like no one has a bad thing to say about Ivory. They're just like, she was a pleasure to work with. She always had a smile on her face. You know, she took what she had and she ran with it. And I like when people say like we gave them something and they took it and ran with it, because every role that Ivory played, like she played it well. Especially Right to Censor, when she was supposed to be raunchy, she was good at that. Like I think she deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm glad we were able to give her flowers. And I remember her vividly watching the Attitude Era, and I enjoyed her a lot.
Me too. I did too. Well, guys, although this was rather short, yeah, we got to the point.
But wait, before we wrap it up, if you haven't checked out our Attitude Era summer series, we have an episode on China, Stephanie McMahon,
Molly Holly.
Jacqueline, Molly Holly.
The Forgotten Women.
The Forgotten Women, about Luna, Deborah,
Sable,
the cat,
no, not
Sable. Well, we talk about Sable.
We talk about her in it.
And we also have a Real Talk episode that just talks about women in the Attitude Era. And we pretty much cover everything women in the Attitude Era. So make sure you check that out.
Check those out. Also, like I said earlier, go to Ripple Junction for your shirts. You can buy shirts for anything you mark over: wrestling, TV shows, cartoons,
video games. My nephew just copped a dope PlayStation hoodie. All three of my nephews wanted PlayStation hoodie, like black hoodies with the PlayStation logo on them.
Oh, that's dope.
From Ripple Junction. I was like, okay,
that's dope. It. Use our promo code. Those wrestling girls get 15% off. Yay. Also, like I said earlier, shout out to Royal Rose Creations.
And Creations with a K.
Creations with a K, right. Hair Up, she's dope.
Really dope.
We definitely
fun DIY
back.
Custom made stuff, I gotta say.
Yeah, definitely going back for some more stuff. We're definitely gonna have some more of those Wrestling Girls merch for you guys. We're so excited. If you're not following us, follow us, Those Wrestling Girls, on Instagram, T Wrestling Girls on Twitter, Facebook discussion group, Facebook regular page. Sign up to our Patreon.
Yes.
Continue to subscribe to our YouTube. We have live watch parties. When's the next watch party? Do you know yet?
August, I want to say 9th.
August 9th, Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, I won't be here.
Another Sunday.
I won't be here. I'll be on vacation.
Nice.
Yes.
Finally.
Right.
Girl, you deserve a vacation.
I mean, it's only a weekend, but I about deserve it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so hit us up for details on that. And on that note, it's your girl, Krista B.
And Queen P.R.
And we are out.